finding the vertex form of a good old quadratic equation. So if you're asked to find the vertex form, the way we're going to do it, the strategy we're going to use is completing the square. Remember guys, what we know about squares is that the sides are always the same. Like a 3 by 3 or 4 by 4, or what we can just say is x by x. We know that whatever it is, a square has the exact identical same two sides. That'll be important later. So when we're completing the square, in order to get to our vertex form, we're first going to change f of x to y, because it's going to make our math a little bit messy. Then we're going to group our variables, leave some space, leave your constant in the cold. So all we did was group x squared minus 8x, left some space, gave our plus 20 there. Because now we're going to zoom in and we're just going to look at this quadratic, and we're going to ask ourselves, what are we going to add in here so that when we factor it, we know we're going to get identical factors, because that's what it means to complete the square. We need the same exact sides on the square. So what am I going to add in there to make sure I will get two matching factors? Well, if I go over here to do a little bit of thinking, we're trying to find that number, so we don't know it yet. But we know that the numbers are going to add or subtract to that -8. And in order to make it a square, we know these two numbers have to be the same. So what plus itself gets us down to -8? Oh yeah, -4 and -4. And -4 times -4 is positive 16. And that's the magic number we need. As we know, if we use 16, this is going to factor into matching x minus 4's here. But we have to balance. If I add a 16 on this side, I have to add a 16 on the other side to keep it balanced. So we know we have y plus 16 equals, we know that we added that 16, so this would factor into x minus 4 times x minus 4. Oops. And we still have plus 20 at the end. Now we have two steps. We need to get y alone, so we'll subtract that 16 from both sides, and that 16 will just go to that 20 at the end. And we'll group the x minus 4. Since these are the same thing, we can just group those as x minus 4 squared. 20 minus 16 is plus 4. And there's your vertex form. And if you wanted the vertex, the sign of the x always flips, the sign of the y always stays the same. Let's make another slightly more complicated example. So we know we're going to go y equals, and we're going to group together the x variables, leave some space, leave your number out to the end. Turn it into y, put your x variables together, leave your constant at the end hanging alone. And we need to ask ourselves, what are we going to add in there so this is going to factor perfectly? We need two perfect factors. So we could either go over here and know that the two numbers are going to add to 20, but we don't know what they are. And if we're completing the square, our answers must be the same. So what plus what will give us 20? Oh yeah, 10 and 10. 10 plus 10 is 20. 10 times 10 is 100. So I know I'm gonna add in a 100 here, and I need to balance, so I know I'm gonna have a 100 over there as well. Y plus 100. And that will factor into x plus 10 and x plus 10. And now we'll subtract that 100 while also putting these as x plus 10 squared. There's your vertex form. The actual vertex is -10, the sign always switches for x, and -101. What about when we have a number with x squared? Our first two steps are still the same. Y equals, group your variables, leave some space, leave your 20 in the cold. The 20 is not involved in this next step. Before you can complete the square, this needs to be 1x squared, so we're gonna factor out that 3. But that 20 is not affected. So I know 3 times x squared is 3x squared, 3 times -4x is -12x, so I factored that correctly. And we're once again gonna zoom in here and ask ourselves how to complete the square. Now, if you guys are getting tripped up with the diamond strategy, the shortcut that will always work to get that magic number is b divided by 2 squared. Okay, so if we take b, negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 4. Sorry, negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. Squared is positive 4. So I'm going to add a 4 over here, but that plus 4 is actually happening 3 times. So I need to add a 12 over here. 4 times 3 to balance on the other side. And we know if we did this correctly, that should factor perfectly. We'll subtract the 12. And your vertex would be flip the sign of the x, keep y. There's the vertex form. There's your actual vertex.